I got this one just kind of red flagged would be the wrong way to put it, but just I'm keeping an eye on this one. Tom Brady now owns a piece of the Las Vegas Raiders. Mark Davis, I think, said at the owners' meetings he was very excited. Tom, who's already had a little piece of the Vegas Aces, the defending WNBA champions. Never forget, Mark Davis, owner of the Raiders, is a champion. He knows what champions look like. The Las Vegas Aces. Even though they had to suspend their coach, Becky Hammon, for treating pregnant women not very nicely, and Mark Davis paying some players under the table and bypassing the salary cap in the WNBA. But he is a champion. They hosted whatever the hell you call that trophy in the WNBA. He has added Tom Brady, another champion, to his operation. I do think the league wouldn't mind having Tom Brady involved in that kind of area. The problem is going to be Tom's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. To buy an NFL team, even if he had people with him, he would need a lot of money, right? $500 million in cash is not getting it done. Look at some of these recent sales for the Broncos and the Commanders. I do wonder, though, the league, he's not in there just randomly, even though he's the best player. It has some parallels, at least to me, of when the league got Michael Jordan involved. Now, clearly that went bad, and Michael Jordan now is, I think, selling his stake and is not even going to own the Hornets or Bobcats or whatever the hell they're called. But I do think Tom Brady owning an NFL team one day, or at least being, own 25%. I think I read today just to own a couple percent would cost him $60-70 million. So the price of entry is a lot for a little tiny piece that when you're a minority owner in the NFL, Tom Brady has zero say in Josh McDaniels, in players. Now, that doesn't mean Mark wouldn't rely on him, bring him to games, listen to him, ask for his advice. Clearly his relationship with Josh McDaniels, Ziegler, there's already some carryover and commonality there of obviously those guys' friendships and New England ties. But keep an eye on that one, because I think one day Tom could continue to take a bigger role. Let's face it, Mark Davis, the Davis family is not long for the NFL. One day that will be in different hands. I promise you that. Like the Jones family, not going away. The Lurie family, the Mara family, there are some families, the Hunt family, that going nowhere. That's one that's that ain't going to be forever. So Tom Brady one day, does he have the funds? I don't know. Clearly he doesn't have billions of dollars, especially with FTX going under, but something to keep an eye on. The one thing with Michael Jordan, I remember always reading or hearing people talk on podcasts how he didn't actually have the cash to buy an NBA team. And then when you watch Air, and I love movies these days, I just think they're going theaters. It won't be out for, I was going to say DVDs, but who even owns DVDs? But just to watch, on our televisions for a long time. It felt like Air was in theaters and then boom, it's on Amazon Prime. I love that. Say what you want about streaming. I love how fast it is to me. Movie theaters, they're dead. I'm sorry. Their shelf life. You talk about something that's holding on for dear life. I turn on, Amazon Prime a week after, the opening of Air and boom, it's right there. I watched it in my bed on Saturday night. Fantastic. And Michael Jordan had to sign one of the great business deals in the history of athletes. To get a percentage of his shoe in 1984 changed the landscape of everything. And clearly financially, it's still doing billions of dollars in revenue. It said at the end of the movie that it's reported or potentially the number is around $400 million to Michael every single year. So Michael did pretty well, getting some equity in that shoe, Air Jordan. That movie, Shoe Dog, is one of the best books that I've ever listened to. And the movie's fantastic with Affleck and Matt Damon. And it's really, really good. If you like, it's just, I'd recommend it. Watch it. Easy watch. I think that's it from the owners' meetings. Another football story I saw today that just made me shake my head. I've always been a Roethlisberger guy as a player. I thought in his heyday, he's, one of the most unique players we've ever seen, right? Because he could move. He wasn't quite as fast, but in terms of power and keeping plays alive, he had this Cam Newton ability, but then he could throw it like he was fucking Brady. And in the peak of his powers, he was just an unstoppable force, playing for just one of the sweet brands and iconic operations in sports. He was sweet. I loved Roethlisberger, those Steeler teams. Like, they're everything I liked about football. And then I saw today, after he retired because he couldn't play anymore, which happens when you're 38, 39, 40 years old in sports. He retires. I mean, last year, he could barely throw the football. You know, it was worse than Drew Brees a couple years ago. It was much closer to Peyton Manning his last year for Denver Broncos. It was clear he could not play football anymore. Like, we could make arguments that last year, Phillip Rivers for the Indianapolis Colts, like, he had another year in him, right? Roethlisberger did not. He could not continue to be a starting quarterback. So he retired. Now, ideally, did he want to retire? Most athletes probably don't want to retire. But he could see the writing on the wall. His agent starts sniffing around. No one else was going to sign him. It was over. That happens. That's part of the business of being a pro athlete. It ends. It literally ends for everybody, right? No one gets to like, yeah, I'm still playing football. I'm 67 years old. That's not the way it works. Where a lot of times, and specifically in football, you get cut, right? Peyton Manning was cut or traded. Joe Montana was traded. Tom Brady was essentially told by Belichick, you're not wanted here anymore. Those are like three of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Joe Montana traded. Brady told, get out. Peyton Manning, you're cut. Roethlisberger, none of those happened to him. It was like, bro, it's over. Ben's like, I know it's over. So when Kenny Pickett was drafted, I don't view Kenny Pickett replacing Roethlisberger. They just needed a quarterback to be a starting quarterback because their starting quarterback retired. When Andrew Luck was drafted by the Colts, they replaced Peyton Manning with Andrew Luck. They replaced Steve Young for when they traded Joe Montana, right? And Roethlisberger said on his podcast, I didn't know he was a fellow podcaster, but glad to have him in the biz. I'll be honest. Find this pretty weird. Sorry, reading wrong line. I'm going to get blasted for this, but early on, I didn't want you to succeed, talking about Kenny Pickett. That's selfish of me, and I feel sorry for that. So I'll give Roethlisberger credit for this. He's saying something that is just kind of insane, given that Kenny Pickett didn't show up and then they cut Roethlisberger or traded Roethlisberger. He retired. They drafted a quarterback. Roethlisberger, while being honest and candid and telling his true feelings, which is all we want out of any human being in anyone that's talking for a living. But what he says to me is really stupid. Like, Ben, why would you? I can't quite fathom that one. Can't grasp that one. Doesn't make any sense to me. Very, very poor reflection, as Roethlisberger knows, saying, listen, probably shouldn't be this honest. No, I'm going to get blasted for it. You should get blasted for it. I would completely understand if you get dumped by a girl and then she starts dating some other guy. You're probably going to root for that relationship to fail. If you get fired, and replaced on radio by someone, you're going to root for that radio show to fail. It did. Right? I completely understand. But if I turn in my 2 weeks and say, hey, I'm leaving, or I dump you, if I'm bitter and rooting against you after I go on and do whatever I'm doing because I chose that, that's a poor reflection of me. And it kind of shows your true colors. And listen, we all have a pettiness to us. We all have parts of us that, are not perfect, right? But that one, to me, reflects a little bit of the Big Ben experience. Kind of all about him, right? Kind of just like it was always about Big Ben, always had to be on his terms. And again, I'm a fan. I rooted for him. I really enjoyed watching him. I thought that one's a pretty tough look.